Good morning. My talk might be a little unconventional today. You're probably used to your speakers telling you all about what they've done in their career and their companies. There will be a little bit of that, but you really won't learn much about Wavetronix. If you want that, go to our website or come and visit us. I'm talking to you. There's a number of things I've learned in my life over the last 40 years that I think would be valuable to each of you. And some of the things I'm going to say aren't conventional wisdom, and you'll probably disagree with me. But I've found that as I've done these 9 things that I'm going to tell you, I may not get through all 9. I have a mark to hit. 11:47, I turn off. It's made a difference in my life and all of the other engineers that I work with. And so hopefully at least one of the 9 will be relevant to you. Most of you aren't going to choose the path I've chosen. Most of you aren't going to be professors. Most of you aren't going to be entrepreneurs. You're going to go down your own paths. But all the things I selected today, it doesn't matter what path you go down, matters for whatever that path is. And so I'm going to start with a story that has to do with the jacket that I have on. My mom bought this jacket for me when I was 18 years old. I've worn it my whole life. It's getting a little threadbare in places, but I love this jacket. And in 1983, I was 18 years old, and I was in an interview with Boeing to be hired. I was just completing my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering, and who wants to hire an 18-year-old? Especially an 18-year-old that's planning on serving a mission in 6 months. I couldn't find a job. I couldn't even get interviews. But out of the blue, the Boeing company called the home where I lived and made arrangements to interview me. And so I found myself across the table from Joel, a recruiter for the Boeing company. And he just asked me one question. And that question was, what do you want to do for the Boeing company? Now, I had prepared for interviews. I'd had a few interviews. They hadn't gone great. Back then, there was no internet. I'd go to the library, look in all the magazines, all the newspapers, find everything I could about the company that was interviewing. And at that time, today it would be called computer engineering. Essentially, I was an electrical engineer, but today it would be a computer engineering degree. That's what I was trained to do. And so I told Joel, this is what I can do. I'm good at microprocessors. I can design them. I can program them. I can do digital electronics. And he listened to that patiently, and he said, what do you want to do for the Boeing company? I was flustered. I didn't know what to say. And so I just regurgitated my same spiel that I'd prepared for interviews. And he listened patiently, and then he says, no, what do you want to do for the Boeing company? Finally, out of exasperation, I says, well, what can I do? And Joel listed off, it must have been a list of 50 items, 50 things that I could choose to do. And somewhere in the middle of the list, he said radar. And I said, after he was through with the list, I says, radar, that sounds interesting. I loved my electromagnetics class that I took as a senior, or I just took it last semester. It's still a class that's offered here. It's Electrical Engineering 360 for those that are electrical engineering students here. I taught it as a professor, revised the curriculum when I came back as a professor. But I said, I would be interested in radar. And he says, okay, I'll go back and find you a job. And I go, well, I'm 18. You have to understand, I was not an old 18. I was still under the supportive care of my parents. I'm from Rexburg, so my parents were there, but they had me living with a family. I did not have the ability to move myself to Seattle, find an apartment. That was beyond who I was. And I guess he could see my discomfort with that, and he offered and said, well, you can live with my family. And I go, oh, okay. And a month later, the offer came in the mail from the Boeing company, an offer to hire me as an electrical engineer for $24,000 a year. Okay, maybe that's not very much money to you today. I had never seen that much money in my entire life. From a cattle ranch in Idaho, I'd never seen that much money. Now, granted, it's similar to the pay that all of you get. It wasn't really high, it wasn't really low. It was just a good, solid, average starting pay. And then when I went there, this is the group that I was in. Whoops, went the wrong way. This is the group that I was in. They had just finished building the AWACS, which is that little dome on top of this Air Force jet. It's one of the most successful weapon systems the Air Force has had. It's an advanced warning and communication system. And the group of 70 engineers, radar engineers that I was in, had just finished the design of all of the radar electronics in there. Well, that seems like a really random choice, doesn't it? I selected radar from a list of 50 things. 42 years later, I'm still doing it. Seems like a random choice. When I returned from my mission, I came back to BYU. I worked with Doug Shabrias and Richard Christiansen on research that had to do with what? Radar. I went to MIT. What did I work on? Radar. I was in the Research Laboratory of Electronics in Lincoln Laboratory, which was the descendants from the Rad Lab in World War II. It's a premier place for radar in the nation. I came to BYU as a professor. What did I do for research for 8 years? Radar. Started a company called Wavetronix. What does it do? Radar. All from a question from Joel of what I wanted to do. My point in this is you can't plan your career. You might think you can, but you can't. You can prepare. That's what you're all doing. You're preparing. And maybe you have something specific in mind that you want to do in your career. Maybe that'll turn out. Maybe some other opportunities will present themselves. There's a lot of good choices as you make those choices of what you're going to do in your career. But don't worry too much about planning it. I've only ever had, that's the only job offer I got. Sometimes you think you've got to have 3 or 4 job offers. I had exactly 1. Right? Opportunities will present themselves. If you work hard and you study and you prepare yourself, opportunities, I can guarantee you, opportunities will present themselves. And your career will take a really interesting course of all yours. One of the first things that you'll get as you take that first job is that they're going to make you an offer. Mine was $24,000. Now this morning, I went and bought this hammer, $25 at Home Depot. Look, it's brand new. Haven't even taken the marketing off. It's like all of you. Soon you'll be newly minted graduates, and somebody is going to want to hire you. How much would you pay for this hammer? Can I buy you for $25? Here's something that people get wrong. We go out and we interview for multiple jobs, and they make us an offer of money, and we choose the highest one. You know what that's called? You sold yourself. Are you a hammer? Is someone going to buy you and use you to hammer and pay you to do that? Buy you like you're a hammer? You're not hammers. You're people. Don't ever take a job because it's the highest amount of money. Take the job because it's a good job. It's a good opportunity. When I was 30 and working here at the university, the dean of the college, his name was Doug Shabrias. He was my master's advisor when I was a master's student. And I had 4 young children. We still hadn't been able to buy a home. And I was in meeting with him and complaining, like I've learned that young people do about pay. All of you probably will at some time. And I was telling him, I don't have enough money. I can't buy a home. I have all these problems. Well, you know, it doesn't really matter if you need the money. That's not why they pay you. You're paid because you're bringing value to that organization. It has nothing to do with what you need. But he was patient. Doug was my age. He was about 60, about the same age I am now. And he told me this. He told me a number of things, but this is the thing that stuck with me for 30 years, and I pass this advice on as much as I can. He said, David, if you'll just focus on making a difference, making an impact, and that's what you're doing, pay will take care of itself in your career. I'm here to tell you, just do that. Just make a difference. Just work hard. Pay will take care of itself. And I've learned that is true. And everyone that's followed that advice that I've given to, they've had happier careers. At Wavetronix, I've had engineers that leave because there's a little bit more money somewhere else. Next thing I know, they're on their third job after Wavetronix in 2 or 3 years. Laid off, or it didn't work out, or whatever. Don't follow the money. Money will take care of itself. Now, probably you'll be 30, let me explain the 30-year-old, and the reason I was concerned. You need money when you have little kids, but it's kind of upside down. The money comes later in your career. When you're young, you have to learn to live within your means. You can't have everything your parents have. It took them a long time to get to the point where they're at. Most of your income generation will be in your late 40s and your 50s and your 60s. Believe it or not, that's when you're really good. Here's something I learned at that first job. You've probably all seen these two complaining old men. They're kind of funny, but you notice they're kind of alone. Well, I had 2 office mates, 2 cube mates, when I first went to the Boeing company. Smoking was still pretty common in the workplace then. This was in '83. And one of my office mates, cube mate, whatever, he smoked a pipe and the other one smoked a cigar. Now, actually, I didn't mind the cigar and the pipe, but they were always complaining. They were telling me how awful the insurance program was and how Phil, who was our leader, didn't know what he was doing, and how the Boeing company had lost its way, its path forward, and all. Well, the Boeing company's still around. Maybe it's struggling. They've had some quality issues the last years, but it's still around. But they just complained about everything. And I was smart enough at 18, or observant enough to realize that's not who I wanted to follow. I learned to follow those that were positive, those that were making a difference, those that were going somewhere. And they were young, and they were old, and they were middle-aged. And my first manager, his name was Jim. He was great. I followed Jim. Jim was positive. I guess you could call him a company man. That's not a bad thing, by the way. And I had a great experience at the Boeing company. Don't hang out with the negative crowd. Hang out around those that are going somewhere and that are making a difference and are focusing on how do we get there and not complaining about everything, because there's plenty of things in an organization to complain about. Just don't do that. Okay. I guess this one's a don't do too. So everyone probably knows what this is. Put it on, hopefully I can see you. Oh yeah, there you are. Okay. Imagine I'm at work, and I'm at home, and I'm working. And I'm talking to my coworkers through my nice little Apple Vision Pro. And my manager says, we really would like you to come back to work. And I go, oh, no, I'm not coming back to work. I can do everything. I get everything done, right? Why are you asking me to come back to work? I'm the best, I'm the sharpest employee you got, and I can do everything at home. Don't do it. Don't, especially in your early career, do not work remote. It's career suicide. Let me tell you why. I just told you when your biggest income would be. When did I say it was? Your 40s, your 50s, and your 60s. There's a lot of things you need to learn, and you learn that from people. You're going to learn as much from your coworkers and your managers and your leaders in the first few years that you learned in school. Your technical knowledge is going to increase dramatically, especially the application of that knowledge. And they're going to teach you how to work on a team. They're going to teach you how to manage complicated projects. Or at least you're going to be on a complicated project and hopefully see how it's managed. You'll miss all of that if you're at home. So don't work remote. There may be a time in your life, I see a number of women in here and men that are parents. There may be a time where you partially or completely leave the workforce. That's fine. Right? But early in your career, and maybe you can work remote through those years, just don't expect your career to grow the same way as if you were at work with other people. So remote work, first job, don't do it. You all have, this is electrical engineering, circuits. You do a lot of different things, but you came here and we stuffed your heads clear full of technical knowledge. Ways to solve problems, design methodologies. We spend hopefully it's just 4 years, might be a little bit longer for some of you. And you think that's what our career is. It is. But it's so much more. You might get asked to become a leader and have to have difficult conversations around pay, like I just described. Or you may have asked to be a leader and your team is just not aligned. They're like those two old men and they're grumpy. And you'll say, oh, it's not for me, I'm technical. Say yes to those invitations to help other people. Because when you do that, your value or your influence goes way up. I get a lot done today because I work with a lot of people. Wavetronix as an organization gets a lot done. If you just want to stay design only, you'll be just a designer when you're my age. You won't be Jim, who mentored me. You won't be Phil, who ran my group at my first job. They provided a structure and a way for me to grow. You'll be still doing just design. Now, I still do, I don't design anymore, but I work with the designers, right? So I'm still involved practicing my profession. But as you grow, your value goes up, your impact, your influence goes up as you're able to help other people get work done. And you align them and you organize them and you organize the projects. And so, if you're like me, you're kind of quiet. Not all of you are. I know some of you are not like me. But when you're given an opportunity to help your coworkers, help them. If you're asked to become a leader in any fashion, if you're asked to lead a project, if you're asked to have pay conversations, do it. Stretch. And then you'll become more than we just taught you. I don't do it anymore. It's like I'm still here. But like you've been taught here at school, you'll become even more than what you've been taught here. Not that what you've been taught here isn't important, but you'll be more than when you left. All right. Everyone can see this. This is a mirror. Somewhere I have a comb. See if I can find it here. Where is it? There it is. Wow, I really look good. Man, I'm really smart. I am a really good engineer. I have such good design skills and strategy skills. Man, I'm good. Really? What's my point? That's what most of you think career growth is. It's how good you look when you look in the mirror. It's how good you are at design. You think of career growth and you think of your skills. Well, it's kind of natural. You've been here learning skills for a few years, might be here for a few years more. It's natural to think of career growth as the skills that you have. That's an illusion. Career growth is measured by what you create. Because you always overestimate when you look in the mirror. But you can't overestimate what's in the rearview window of what you've done. So one way to judge if you're growing in your career, what do you leave? So you work for a company your entire life and you retire. What do you leave? I worked at BYU for 8 years. What did I leave? I still see myself in the programs here, 8 years later. I see things that I worked hard for and built during that 8 years. They're still, they're not as strong as they were, 15 years ago, but they're still there. So you go to that first job. Career growth is not the skills that you learn. I mean, it is, but it's not. Can't measure it that way. It's what is there when you leave. What are the projects you've completed? What have you done for your coworkers? What about your leaders or your managers? The entire organization. That's what career growth, or that's how you measure it. And what you're all engineers. You've been trained to build things, design things and build things. Look in the rearview mirror and see what you've designed and built. And if you don't like what you see in the rearview mirror, then maybe you need to do some more career growth. Which means maybe you need to care more about what you're building. You need to care more about the outcomes. It's not about seat time. It's not about just solving fun puzzles. When I drive around the country today and around the world, we sell little white boxes, right? And it's a challenging market. It's always, as a business, you're always 3 to 5 years, I say, from going out of business or some time period, right? You always have to be reinventing yourselves. But I enjoy going around, or I land in a country and I get off the airplane and I drive to where I'm going, and on the motorway I pass these little white boxes. On the way here, how many of our little white boxes did you go past? If you walked, maybe 20 you might have walked past. If you drove here, 50, 60. Little white boxes is something that we built that's making a difference. One of my favorite products is the advanced product. It measures how far your car is from the stop bar and how fast you're going. And all of us have to make a decision whether we're going to stop or we're going to go when the light turns yellow. And usually we do that right. And sometimes we go a little too late, and sometimes we slam on the brakes. If you slam on the brakes, you might get rear-ended. If you go too late, you might hit another car, right? But most of us, if we're within 2 seconds of the stop bar, meaning if we take the distance and divide it by the speed, if that's like 2 seconds, almost all of us go every time. If we're 5, 6 seconds back, almost all of us stop every time. And so we build a product that measures how many seconds you are from the stop bar. And it reduces the number of accidents by 3 to 4 times. We've sold tens and tens of thousands of that product around the United States. The crashes in intersections are 40% of the or 40% of the deaths are in intersections. The other 60% are on motorways because the speeds are higher. But we've saved some lives. There's 2 million accidents in the United States every year, and there's about 5,000 deaths, right? And we made a difference on whittling that down. It's a product that I don't know if pride is the right word, but that's something that we built. But I'm even more proud of all the people that I work with and how I've been part of their lives and they've been part of mine. I've watched people grow from new college graduates to seasoned professionals that can lead complex projects and teams, can have pay conversations, can talk to people about where they're going in their career. When we have a young mother that wants to stay home with the kids, they're having that conversation, helping her navigate it. Those kinds of things. Let's go to the next one here. So, when you look in the mirror, that's not real, that's an illusion. Look at what you've done. And if you don't like it, then you've still got the rest of your life to improve on it. I always have liked this ever since I was a student and first saw it. I think it's still there. It's down on the side of the hill. And it has that phrase, enter to learn, go forth to serve. And I'd like to take a little bit different tact on it and give you a way that you could think about serving that has served me well. And I put it this way. Become what the people around you need you to be. It's a very simple statement. Become what those around you need you to be. It's unselfish. It's outward. And oh, will you grow. It's the ultimate challenge. That first job you take might be miserable. They might have a bad culture. Maybe your manager yells at you. I can't control that. But you know what? I've seen a lot of organizations that aren't necessarily that functional, but there are small pockets where they're having fun and solving problems, even in that bigger organization, because there's somebody that's become what those around them need them to be. So even if that first job isn't perfect, because it won't be, stay there for at least 3 to 5 years. Actually, the harder the job is, the worse the culture. I mean, I know you don't believe this, and I know you won't believe me, but the worse the culture, the more you will grow. If you try to be what your coworkers need you to be. Organizations that are functional is because people have paid the price and invested to create a culture in an organization and processes that make it not dysfunctional. That can be you. So I would hope that your first job is in a place where those that have come before you create a great environment for you to work. But it's not necessary. If it turns out that you accepted that job thinking it was something else and you get there and it's hard, what an opportunity. What an opportunity to make a difference. Typically, the harder the challenge, the more we grow. So become what those around you need. It works in family. It works at work. It works in every aspect of life. And if you do that when you're my age, you'll still be challenged. All right. Next point. You've heard about work-life balance. So I'm not sure I like that phrase. I'm not sure it's that helpful. So I've got a couple of things here. This is a real picture of my family. This is just, it says Achievement Certificate for John Smith. So let this represent my career, and let's have this represent my life. What on earth does work-life balance mean? Is it balancing them? Well, let me give you the punchline. What I found by most people that spend a lot of time talking about work-life balance, it means they want to be mediocre in both. Whatever you're going to do, give it your all. If you're going to be a dad and a mom, do it. If you're going to accept employment, do it. Might mean a few less hours of TV, a few less hours of this or that. Just do a good job. Put your all into it. Now, I'm not suggesting you ruin your body and work so many hours that you're not, that's not what I'm suggesting. But when you're at work, you spend a lot of time at work. Like, let's just say your average is 40 hours a week and you do it for as long as I have. How many hours is that? I might as well do something that matters, right? Might as well put my all into it. Another myth. Families matter more than work. Work matters more than families. People just matter. Yes, your mom matters, and your dad matters, and your kids matter, but so does your coworkers and your leaders. They matter. So if you're going to spend all that time at work, like my brother, my oldest brother, he passed away a few years from cancer that he had toward the end of his career. He was in construction management. He worked at Big D and built lots of big buildings like the original Micron facility, built the Gateway, a lot of big projects. When he was doing the Micron thing, I went up there and he had 6,000 workers on the site. It was just like, oh my, how does he do this? I went to these trailers. It's when I was a professor at BYU. I was just amazed at his ability to manage 6,000 people doing all these different things. I was just astounded. But after he got cancer, his life, he couldn't do those things anymore. I think he was more capable and productive than I am, and I watched him become disabled. And I was over at his meeting, I was over visiting him one day, and he was in a particularly low mood that day, and he was in his office, and actually he had moved his bed in there, and he was in his office, and he had some pictures of buildings that he'd built up on the wall. And he said, "David, that doesn't matter. I'm going to take all of those down." And so I looked at him, and I could see that there was people in all the pictures. And I knew this was a down day for him, and I was trying to lighten the mood and bring a little joy into his life that day. And I says, "Tell me about the people in the first picture." And he tells me about them, and I find out that he had just talked to one of them yesterday, the day before. And I go to the second one, he tells me about those people, and he just talked to two of them in the last week. And he went to these are like, when they open buildings and there's people standing out front. Every picture, he had just talked to almost someone in every one of those pictures within the last week. And I said, "Carrie, why do you want to take those pictures down? It's the people in the pictures that matter to you." So that's the other thing in your career. It's not work-life balance. The people, the friends that you meet at work. Mike Jensen is my partner. He's your dean. I met him when we hired him here in, 1994-ish, 5-ish, somewhere in there. I remember interviewing him, and we gave him an offer, and he had joined the faculty. I've known him ever since, right? And we're work friends. We don't really do things together outside of work, but we're loyal to each other. We have each other's back. Neither of us are greedy. I've encouraged him and supported him, and he took a one-year sabbatical, left BYU, and we founded Wavetronix. He really wanted to return, so he returned to BYU. It was great. He's taken a sabbatical or two through the years at Wavetronix. He helps a little bit part-time. So I've tried to support him in his career, and he supported me with Wavetronix. Work friendships are great. So don't think you have to choose between family and work. You go to work anyway, you might as well have friends and make a difference. And so work-life balance, yeah, it's a thing, but don't make it an excuse to not make a difference with people at work and make a difference with people at home. All right. I was in Teton National Park summer before last, and there was a guy that walked down actually, I made this bigger so you could see it. Then there was a guy that walked down the trail that had this shirt on. "Never underestimate an old man with an engineering degree." Oh, I loved that. And I said, "Linda, that's really a cool shirt." I think it was my birthday or Christmas. She gave me the same shirt, right? I'm not sure I view myself as an old man, but from your perspective, I'm probably an old man. I'm 60. But what I hope for you is that when you're my age, you look back on what you've done in your life, and no one can underestimate you. You're so good. You're so good at working with people. You're so good at design. You're so good at being a grandpa, helping your kids. That's what I hope for you. I know it seems like a long ways away, but it just seems like yesterday I was sitting in the chair like you and I was 18. Or I was here getting a master's degree. It just seems like yesterday. Life goes past in a blink. So give some thought to what you want your life to look like when you're my age. And you're looking in the rearview mirror and you're measuring. You can't do this. You do this, right? You look in the rearview mirror. And as you look in that rearview mirror and you see your parents and you see your children or friends or your nieces and nephews, as you see your coworkers and you see the contributions that you've made in your profession, I hope you feel what I feel. I am very, what's the word? I am content with my career. Content, that's not a good enough word. I just feel warm inside about my engineering career and the start that I got here. So I hope that's you when you're 60. Okay, so let's just review these quick. 9 things. You only need one job. You can't plan your career. That's what Boeing was. You can't plan your career. Take opportunities as they come and really embrace those opportunities. Are you just an engineer for hire? Or are you more than that? You're not a dollar amount. Don't let any employer or anyone tell you, or don't ever think that your value as an individual is how much somebody pays you. You're a lot more than a hammer. Third, don't hang out with the grumpy people. They're comical at times. I mean, don't ignore them. Help them. They're your coworkers, but don't let them set the energy or the direction that you're going. Don't work remote. Career suicide, especially early in your career. Career suicide. It's not just technical. It's about the people you work with, the complexity of the projects. There's so much for you to learn after you graduate. Yes, your technical skills are going to blossom in the first few years. You'll notice the pay goes up a little bit faster first few years after you leave, because all that stuff that they've been helping you become competent with, you become good at it. And so all of us, we raise your pay a little bit faster those first years because you improve rapidly technically in the first few years. But it's more than that. It's the projects you work on. It's the people you work with. You've got to learn. I mean, they tell you here that teamwork matters, right? It really does matter. Wow, I'm good. Remember, it's not your skills. That's not how you measure career growth. Look in the rearview mirror. What have you created? Go forth to serve. Simple statement. Become what those around you need you to be. Be the dad your child needs, or however you want to phrase it. Work-life balance. Don't make it an excuse to do both poorly. If you're going to do something, do it well. And then I hope when you're my age, you'll like that t-shirt. Because you'll still be proud to, you can look back on your engineering career, wherever it turned. You might end up in sales. You might end up in support, manufacturing, design, business. There's so many places your engineering degree can take you that you probably never thought about. Because we don't actually teach all of those things in school. We give you the base, but there's so many things you can use that degree for. You might end up in finance. And just my last thing to close. Oh, wrong way. I believe in you. Don't listen to anybody that tells you your generation doesn't know what you're doing. Neither did we. We used to be your age. You will figure it out. You're going to be great engineers, and you're going to make a big difference in your career, so go do it. Thank you.